Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up at Our News tonight, Prime Minister Philip Davis speaks with reporters ahead of COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland. Police search for the suspects responsible for a double murder at Prison Lane and a shooting on Carmichael Road. A new maritime surveillance system is commissioned. A Bahamian chef shares local delicacies with the world. But first, how a group is providing support for grieving parents. Welcome to Our News, the weekend edition, and thanks for joining us. I'm Georgia Bain, topping news tonight. World leaders are descending on Glasgow, Scotland for the United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP26, this week. Prime Minister Philip Davis says the Bahamas will be working to raise awareness on how small island states such as the Bahamas are feeling the severe effects of climate change. He spoke with reporters before leaving for Glasgow this afternoon.
During the course of the week, we'll be engaging with some of the superpowers of the world to discuss the way forward in respect to their commitment to SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which has at its core an assault on those what I call climate emissions. And we hope to engage them and to have them sensitized to the reality of it. Dorian was no accident.
The climate change conference comes at a critical time when the world is experiencing a rise in global temperatures. Rising temperatures affect the types of hurricanes and storms we experience here in the region and play a role in rising sea levels. Prime Minister Davis says the Bahamas may not be a huge contributor to global warming, but we are feeling the effects.
We are the least amongst the nations to contribute to climate change, to the climate conditions that we are now experiencing. We do hope to rally up our allies to join our voices for better access and easier access to funding, to the Climate Fund and the Green Fund in particular, to assist us in building more resilience.
COP stands for Conference of the Parties and will bring almost every country together with a common purpose to address the growing threat of climate change. At COP21 in Paris, world leaders signed on to the Paris Agreement, aiming to keep global warming well below 2 degrees. According to COP26 organizers, the window to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees is closing.
Our voices will be heard, and I expect that many will join me in holding accountable those who are more responsible for climate change and having them contribute to our efforts to adapt and to mitigate against the consequences of climate change.
Now countries are working together to protect the planet.
We also would wish to seek how we can monetize what I call our carbon sinks in the Bahamas. We think that's a wonderful opportunity to create another revenue for the country.
Harvonic Toot is in Glasgow and will be providing the latest updates on what the climate change conference means for the Bahamas. Follow Our News Bahamas on social media for the details. Switching gears, 2 men are dead and another recovering in hospital after a gathering turned deadly in the Fort Fincastle area last night. Police say 2 gunmen opened fire on a group of people gathered on a porch at a home on Prison Lane. Police press liaison officer Audley Peters confirming that 2 of the shooting victims were pronounced dead on the scene. The agonizing screams and cries of family members fill the air.
A group of persons were on a porch on Prison Lane when 2 suspects armed with firearms discharged a weapon in their direction, fatally injuring 2, and 1 received injuries about his lower extremities.
Peters gave these brief details on the scene.
The police control room received information of a shooting incident that occurred on Prison Lane in Fort Fincastle. Our officers responded, and on the arrival of the first responding officers, they met 2 bodies on a porch, unresponsive, and with wounds consistent with gunshots. However, as they arrive, they discovered that 3 persons were shot at the scene. One of the males was transported to the hospital via a private vehicle.
The incident taking place not too far from police headquarters on East Street. According to Peters, the victims appeared to be in their 30s. Police are appealing to anyone with information to assist with this investigation.
It's a sad situation this afternoon that 2 persons could walk upon a gathering that was enjoying their Friday evening, and we have here today 2 individuals who have succumbed to injuries as a result of the use of firearms. We're appealing to members of this community who may have any information in regards to this incident to contact the police department at 502-9991-92. And additionally, I ask the community or individuals in the country, in particularly New Providence, who are aware of persons in possession of firearms to report them to the police.
Police say the man who was shot in his car outside a Carmichael Road business Friday night has succumbed to his injuries. Initial police reports say sometime after 9 p.m. police found a man sitting in a vehicle suffering from gunshot wounds to the upper body. The victim was transported to hospital via emergency medical services. Police said the victim was in his vehicle outside a business establishment when a man approached him and opened fire in his direction, injuring him. The suspect fled the scene in an unknown direction. Investigations into this matter continue. A Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Michael Darville, touting the early success of the Ministry of Health's Communication Task Force, which has been hitting the ground with the vaccine education and awareness campaign.
We made it very clear that one of the key ways to deal with vaccination hesitancy is to ensure that you put a strong public education program in place. As minister, one of my first objectives was to ensure that I put together a communication task force with some specific objectives, and that's basically to go after those individuals who, for whatever reason, feel that vaccination is not their option. We believe that we have a strategic plan to combat that.
Darville appearing on this week's episode of On the Record with host Jerome Sawyer. The health minister believes that the education campaigns are yielding results.
We are very pleased that to date, we are now having individuals who fell into that category now taking it very seriously because they see the effects of COVID and strong possibility of hospitalization and possibly death, particularly for individuals who are not vaccinated. That's very important, sure. And we will definitely be able to start the necessary public education programs everywhere in order to reduce vaccination hesitancy in the Bahamas.
The Bahamas was one of the stops of the tree planting relay around the region in the run-up to the United Nations Climate Change Conference 2021 in Glasgow, Scotland. The Bahamas took the spade from Trinidad and Tobago in the 8th leg of the relay to plant breadfruit trees in Fox Hill. British High Commissioner to the Bahamas, Sarah Dickinson, says that we will play a role in protecting the planet.
Thank you to the colleagues in Trinidad and Tobago for passing on the shovel. I'm here in the Bahamas in the rain. We're just been planting a breadfruit tree because protecting nature and living from the land is so important. And across the Caribbean, the coastline and the land is such a wonderful natural beauty that working together to protect it is really important. And this is all in honour of COP26, which is happening in Glasgow quite soon. I'm going to pass the shovel on to my colleagues in the Dominican Republic.
13 countries in the Caribbean region participated in the relay, spreading the pledge to protect the planet across more than 5,000 miles. It began in Barbados, where the High Commissioner on the Eastern Caribbean planted the first tree with his daughters and Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley.
This week, leaders from across the Caribbean are heading to Glasgow for the COP26 Climate Summit. To symbolise our hope for the negotiations and for the future of our planet, my daughters and I joined the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honourable Mia Mottley, to plant 2 trees. These trees kick off a tree planting relay around the region, with the virtual shovel passing between our high commissions and embassies across the Caribbean.
The relay ended in Belize ahead of COP26. Well, still to come on our News Weekend, government board members expected to be named soon, but who will get the post? And a little later, a company helps businesses to get inside the minds of customers. We'll have the details when our News Weekend returns.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
The United States Northern Command and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force stepping up maritime surveillance in the Bahamas with the commissioning of a new system on Thursday. Prime Minister Philip Davis gave remarks during the ceremony at the Royal Bahamas Defense Force base, renewing his government's commitment to securing the country's borders.
My government is committed to upholding our immigration laws and securing the borders of all islands within our archipelago, from Abaco and Grand Bahama in the north to Inagua in the south. Our partnership with the U.S. government has proven fruitful in these efforts as we work together to secure our waterways.
Defense Force Commodore Raymond King says that this is the second of 6 long-range coastal radars which will be placed on Eleuthera, Exuma, Inagua, and South Andros. The radar system is expected to heighten surveillance and provide continuous coverage of maritime vessels in the country. National Security Minister Wayne Monroe says that it's a critical step.
Being able to acquire such a system where it did not exist previously strengthens the foundation that now exists, and is a critical step in building a regional partnership and strengthening security.
It is intended, the more we have populated, we will have a broadened awareness where the concentric circles will actually overlap and will give us a continuous coverage in terms of maritime vessels in our domain.
Former opposition leader Loretta Butler Turner says former politicians or individuals who have held primary positions should not be granted board appointments this time around. Her comments come days after the Nassau Guardian reported that Prime Minister Philip Davis is considering appointing former Progressive Liberal Party Cabinet Minister Shane Gibson as deputy chairman of the Bahamas Telecommunications Company.
Those sort of mistakes or those sort of appointments with regards to not Shane Gibson in particular, but anyone that the Bahamian people feel, have had their run in politics, that they not give them primary positions at this time.
On Thursday, Press Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Clint Watson, announced 19 of the 140 approved board appointments, which included former PLP Cabinet Minister Dr. Daniel Johnson. Butler Turner says while everyone has to contribute in some way, there are many in the country who can do the work. She warned the government to stay away from making those moves.
But there are many persons in the Bahamas, and if this government wants to be a government of unity and unification, then they've also got to look beyond the party faithfuls, and they've got to be able to demonstrate that they are for the Bahamian people. At the end of the day, what is good for the majority is going to augur well for all of us.
According to Watson, Cabinet was set to meet on Friday to finalize those board appointments. When our News Weekend comes back from the break, a support group tells grieving parents that they are not alone, and how a Bahamian chef is sharing the Bahamas with international culinary communities. We have the details when our News Weekend returns.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is our News Weekend. Welcome back. October is also highlighted as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. It's a topic that mother Jewel Carey is building a platform of hope on after experiencing a loss of her own due to sudden infant death syndrome in 2017.
March 24, 2017, I woke up at about 3:30 a.m. and I was prompted by this voice that said, "Get up, pray, stop procrastinating." And instead of praying, I actually turned to the baby instead, seeing that the time was around her feeding schedule. When I looked to her and I picked her up, I noticed that she was unresponsive. Her hand was in a fist, her mouth was open, and I was doing my best to try to revive her.
After attempting to revive baby Dariel Ava at home to no avail, Carey and her partner then rushed her to the hospital.
She was breathing very shallow, and so we tried our best to save her. That night, we took her to the hospital, and unfortunately, she did not make it. It was only until after the funeral we got the diagnosis on the autopsy report that it was indeed sudden infant death syndrome. And usually that autopsy report is given to babies that they have no clue what could have happened.
Carey says the pain that follows the loss is indescribable.
For SIDS moms, you actually give birth to the child and you would have that child for a period of time. SIDS usually affects mothers, babies between the ages of 0 to 1 year old. And so I would have had her for 2 months. I was in shock, denial. I felt feelings of guilt as if I could have done so much more to keep her alive. I went through depression, suicidal thoughts, and it was just a lot of agony, a lot of questions that I went through during that time.
Although the loss of baby Ava could never be forgotten, there was a rainbow at the end of Carey's storm.
My story did not end with Dariel. I actually ended up having a rainbow baby. And that was, I always say it's the shock of my life, but giving birth to him, his name is Jeremiah, and giving birth to him actually helped in my healing process. But I never forgot my baby before.
Carey says the subject doesn't seem to get enough attention here in the Bahamas.
The subject does not get as much attention as it should, and we look in the news right now, we see what's going on with the maternal deaths of the babies, and I just want mothers to know that there is help, there are resources out there, and I think that we do need to get more vocal, and I think this is the starting point to let you know that there are groups available. There's the Terrace Foundation, the Bahamas chapter, there's the Amen Network hosted by Geranda Brennan, we have the Lighthouse Group, and so there are other groups out there that can support you.
Carey is now the founder of She Rises from SIDS, her social media platform where she reaches out to parents who have experienced loss, hosts forums, and even connects families with therapists to help in the process of grief.
With this platform, I'm actually looking to do some writing. I would like to formulate more groups, more forums. Even in these times, I think forums are very important so that we can really just talk and discuss. As a nation, we don't really delve into our feelings, our emotions, and those things that are affecting us. And so I want to create platforms that are more open so that we can do that. And I don't know what's next. I'm just walking and being led by God.
A young Bahamian is looking to get accurate media consumption information into the hands of Bahamian business owners. Bahamas Media Insights is using comprehensive surveys, media journals, and focus groups to take a deep dive into local consumer habits. It's the brainchild of founder Tyrena Roll.
We have embarked on a comprehensive study. We have a sample size that is nationally representative of more than 1,000 respondents, and it's comprehensive because we're utilizing a quantitative survey as well as media diaries that deep dive into persons' habits daily, and also focus groups to really have a well-rounded view of how persons consume media.
Roll says the aim is to give insight and feedback that can direct advertising teams and business owners to where their market is and shed light on how they consume media.
For the longest time, even the most experienced and savvy marketers and business owners have relied on anecdotal evidence to decide how they would spend their marketing dollars, right? So I think that women aged 25 to 55 are listening to this radio station or, reading this newspaper, but it's really just based on what we think and not verifiable facts. And so for the first time, we're able to provide affordable and comprehensive sound insights on how persons are actually interacting and consuming media locally. And I think that is so exciting because now you can pinpoint how to reach your target market.
Still to come on our News Weekend, a Bahamian chef takes the Bahamas to the world. But first, our True Bahamian Treasure Hunt winner is revealed. That's coming up at our News Weekend returns.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our News Weekend. Well, treasure hunters have been hard at work. Our TV congratulates this week's winners of the True Bahamian Treasure Hunt. Uniquely Bahamian cuisine and flavors are now on display to the world after Bahamian chef took the readers of the world-renowned food magazine Bon Appetit on a culinary journey through the Bahamas. Chef Simeon Hall Jr. called it the biggest privilege of his career to write the feature for the foodie's favorite magazine.
What was really satisfying about it wasn't a piece on me. It was a piece to talk about 8 other places that I find absolutely amazing here on the island of New Providence.
Initially, Hall says the piece was supposed to feature all the Bahamian islands, but was changed because of the pandemic. The article will be featured in November, which is the best-selling month for the magazine. He says that he has around 75 hard copies on the island, but it can also be viewed online. Chef Hall has a bit of advice for upcoming chefs who may one day want to showcase their craft to the world.
But the one thing that I would say to anybody is that the sky is not the limit. That's the thing that I want people to understand. And I know it's kind of cliche to say that, but I want you to really believe that, because here I am, somebody from the Bahamas who's never been featured in the Bahamas, nowhere in Bon Appetit in all the years. And here I am, not just writing on 8 locations around Nassau, New Providence, but writing it myself and getting, out there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for our News Weekend. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Georgie O'Bain, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.